What's up, everybody? Welcome to episode 253 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast. I'm David Hain, and I'm happy to bring you this podcast today. If you like this podcast, please subscribe, follow, share the link with your friends. If you want to get our curriculum, you can get the paperback or ebook of From Ashes to Destiny on Amazon. Today's episode number 253 of the A to D From Addict to Disciple podcast is entitled Isolation or Fellowship. This is our second Wacky Wednesday episode for today, and as all of them, it goes from one of the chapters of the From Ashes to Destiny curriculum. We're in phase 2, which deals with heart wounds, and this is the first story from chapter 11 of phase 2, entitled The Heart in Need of Fellowship. I'd like to start a little bit from an understanding of the title that I chose, Isolation or Fellowship. And I say in this chapter, isolation is a tool the enemy uses to deepen present addictions and to lead someone back into relapse if they are trying to stay clean and sober. Isolation in recovery often comes as ex-addicts feel unwelcome at our church, untrusted by their family, friends, or employers, or ostracized as police officers in the court system require certain things of them which could trigger the relapse. So that's a little setup for the isolation part. And now let's get into the story of Ross. I miss my children so much. I can't describe how it feels knowing that I won't be able to see any of my children until they're over 18 years old. It was my use of drugs that led me into my sexual offenses. Tears stream down Ross's cheeks as he shares his pain in not being able to be with his family and not being able to have a church family. I'm here in this Christian halfway house, and I can't go on a lot of activities with the other guys due to my crime. I can't even go out to a baseball game because I'm not supposed to be anywhere that children congregate. I feel like my probation officer is isolating me on purpose to force me into doing something stupid so that he can send me back to jail. Sure. Another deep story, and you can see these last two had to do with guys that got caught up in sexual offenses for, both of them from this Wacky Wednesday, and how it tied into, childhood wounds and the addiction and the escape that they chose. So I'd like to ask some questions from Ross's story. The first one, Ross said he missed his childhood. So I want to ask you, what do you miss from your childhood? Do you miss family? Do you miss the friends? Do you miss the fun? Do you miss the innocence of childhood? When you think back to your childhood and things that you miss, that you wish you had now, what do you miss from your childhood? Question number 2. Ross's use of drugs led him into his sexual offenses. So I want you to think back to when you started using, whether it was drugs, alcohol, or porn. What did your introduction into that and then your addiction to that lead you into? What are the consequences of your addiction that you're still paying for? Ross is paying for his, that he can't be around children, he can't be with his family, he can't even see his own children. What are the consequences that you feel you're still paying for from things you did while you were in your addiction? Number 3, Ross talked about the loss of family, the loss of friends, the loss of his children. What losses, if you think of consequences, what losses hurt you the most? What losses haunt you the most as you're trying to establish your recovery? And how do they affect you? Number 4, where do you find fellowship? This chapter is about fellowship. And so I want to ask you, where do you find it? Where can you go to find fellowship? And also, do you even know what fellowship is? How would you define it? And I'll give you just a hint for the way I talk about it. A difference between fellowship and friends. Fellowship to me, and I'll make a twist on the ship part of it. It's sort of like you've got people and you're all in the same ship, in the same boat. And everybody in the ship knows that we're in this together. We're sharing the same purpose. We're sharing the same destination. We've got each other's back. We're all pulling our own weight, as in rowing the boat together. So I guess to stick on this, play on words, what fellows are you in a ship with? Do you have those kinds of friends that it is true fellowship, where there's unity of purpose, unity of goals and destinations, unity in the way you're interpreting things, and can you be honest with each other, and that this fellowship provides you the support, the encouragement, the acceptance, the authenticity, and accountability, all the things that you're looking for in true friendship can be found in this sort of fellowship. Number 5, Ross had places that he couldn't go because of his past choices. He couldn't go to a ball game. He couldn't go to activities from his halfway house. Is there any place that you can't go because of your past choices? And I don't just mean, from a parole officer or a probation officer telling you can't go there. What are places that you are avoiding because you just can't go? It's too unsettling. It's too risky, whatever it might be. You're afraid to even go there. Number 6, how do you feel isolation fuels doing something stupid? Ross was afraid that his PO was trying to set him up, by isolating him more and more. And he was afraid that he'd end up doing something stupid and that the PO just wanted to put him in jail again. So do you believe that isolation, even if you call yourself a loner, you might be living in a place that has you isolated from society, or you might feel isolated from society because of not only where you're living, but people who know your past, or feel that you have that look of someone who's homeless, or someone who's an addict, or someone who's unemployed, or whatever it might be. How does this feeling of isolation fuel you into doing something stupid or making bad choices? Number 7, how can fellowship help you make positive choices? And how can these choices put you in control of your future? Remember, it's isolation or fellowship. So how can fellowship put you in control of your future? Thanks for listening to this episode of the A2D from Addict to Disciple podcast. If you were saying that's me as you listened, then it's time to reach out now and join a group. You can message me on the link in this podcast or by email at davidfroma2d@gmail.com, or go to my website, www.froma2d.org, and click on the contact page. If you're listening on Spotify, you can leave your comments by clicking on the link they provide on that platform. Keep listening to future podcast episodes. As always, stay safe and stay resilient.